Okay, so hello everyone. This is Uzair Suryo. Welcome to another episode of GIFF Talks 2022, a part of Gandhara Independent Film Festival, third edition. Today we have Sarmad Khoosat with us, a very prominent name in Pakistan's film and TV. He has worked as an actor and then directed many TV dramas. Some of those are still being talked about. And then he moved towards film and cinema. His films have won big in many international film festivals and are giving new course to the Pakistani cinema. Today, we'll be talking to him about his films, importance of independent cinema and film festivals, and also about art of watching cinema. So, hello, Samar. Glad to have you here.
Hello there, I'm happy to be here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you have been very busy since Kamli has released, and I'm grateful that you took out time for us.
My pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure.
Let's just start. You have been associated with both television and film. How has been this journey and transition? What motivated you to move from television to film? If you can briefly tell us about it.
So I started around the end of 90s, 1999, when I was still in college. And I think back then, when one is that young, you just want to do something, right? You want to do something which gets you validation, which gets you money, which gets you success. So television, all those years ago, had just sort of, started evolving towards satellite TV, and the private TV channels were kind of just being born, or some of them had already been there, but they were kind of branching out into it's that era when you have Indus Vision, and then there's Indus Music, and then there is Indus News, and so it was a very fertile um, era for television. So I started with television. I started with writing for television and acting for television, and eventually transitioned into directing also. But we used to do, slightly homemade scale sitcoms, and just funny stuff that we thought was easy to make, which required lesser money, etc., etc. But I remember very clearly, the deep inside, the fascination for cinema, the magic of cinema was always like, much more charming. It was bigger than TV, cinema was it. And to be honest, like, because I had a degree in psychology and I'm pretty much self-taught or self-trained in what I do now. So my reference is the materials that I would get inspired by, the materials that, I would study were mostly from cinema. And perhaps not such a huge connection with local cinema, but generally, just the idea of cinema, of a compact story, of a story that is told within a certain time bracket, and then the idea of watching it in a space where you're mentally prepared to just to focus on it, to absorb it. I think that was always there. So I wanted to make films, but back then it was still at the cusp of like, say, that era when Pakistani films or cinema was dying, but a lot was happening also. And there was always a very evident divide between TV and film. So there was no way I could get into it, to be honest. I'm still talking about when celluloid ruled, and films were expensive, they needed more money, there were big studio systems, and etc., etc., etc. So what I wanted to get to was that, so I started with TV thinking, oh, I am eventually going to make films, I will find a way to make films, but how about TV is my like the starting point. But lo and behold, TV became so much bigger than cinema here. Cinema then collapsed. There was almost like a demise of sorts. And then, we were down to making, I don't know, 4 films a year or 5 films a year. And those two were either very desperate or like, just, just the last remnants of whatever film tradition we had, until Khuda Ke Liye came, and, at least another door opened that, oh, directors from the other side, or filmmakers, storytellers from the other side can also come and tell stories their way. They do not need to adhere to the pre-existing formula, to the genre, all of that. In any case, so I'll fast forward to about 15 years, and that's when Humsafar has happened. That's when Manto has happened also. Now, the Manto did become my first feature film, but to be honest, it was shot like, it was written like TV, it was written for TV. What we did was just a distillation of the series into a film, and that came out, that became very encouraging. And that was my first taste of, oh, now this is what it feels like when people go to a theater to watch your stuff, and and that this is how you tell a story with this kind of a duration bracket to it. Because TV is interesting, it's where I learned most of my ropes from. But having said that, the formats are very different. I mean, you have episodes, you have a different speed of production, you have a different approach towards storytelling. I mean, so cinema was a very, very different experience, even when I had, say, distilled a thing that looked like a film, or at least I claimed it as a feature film. The whole exercise was very different. Like, it took me about 2.5 years to somehow condense that film version of Manto. And this transition was always meant to happen, but around 2016 I decided, okay, now I am in my mid 30s, and back then that was, now in my early 40s. I was like, okay, enough is enough. Now, it cannot be, oh, dreams are dreams, and you're waiting for some big miracle to happen and your dreams will come true. So I decided I have to actively do something about it. And that's when I made my little company, because I knew that, okay, I do not want to just make films for the heck of it, but I want to tell stories that I believe in. There are stories that have been, they're somewhere here or here, they're somewhere. And that's how Khoosat Films came into existence. And I didn't know anything about the business. I did not research enough. I just thought, oh, I have saved some money from my television career, and I'm willing to invest all of it into making films. And hence, Zindagi Tamasha happened, which is technically like my first proper feature film, but also my first production.
Okay, great. So tell us more about your films like Zindagi Tamasha, Joyland, and Kamli. What is your process of direction or working on set as a director, as a producer for Joyland? What is your involvement in the script development process as well as post-production and pre-production?
Process-wise, I would say I don't know. I feel it begins with a connection with the story. That's where, and every film would bring its own process with it. You will need to do many different kinds of, say, processes or exercises with it to eventually get to, say, making the film. And the actual journey begins with, oh, you have an idea, and now you want to be sure that this idea is good enough, this idea is correct enough, and this idea will blossom into a feature film. And that comes with time. That comes with giving it enough time to grow a little bit. Like, I have thought of many ideas that are very exciting to begin with, but then somehow they just stay as exciting ideas only. They do not lend themselves well to a screenplay or to a proper feature length thing. So with both, say, Zindagi Tamasha and Kamli, it is, both are inspired by life and recorded life around me. For example, the main idea for Zindagi Tamasha came from these really interesting and rather bizarre videos that I saw on YouTube. And that's where the germ came from. But then it did not stay as just those videos that I saw on YouTube. It eventually grew into something completely different. And it's a very collaborative journey. Like, I don't think I have the patience or the focus anymore to just single-handedly, or like a true auteur, like just sit down and write something. So I love collaborating with people, and I feel filmmaking is such an interesting medium where you can get other creative minds to sort of pour in their ideas, their creativity. So Zindagi Tamasha, I had Nirmal Bano, write it for me. I had some idea of, how I wanted the narrative to be like, what I wanted to say through the film. But then it was completely collaborative. With Kamli, it is based on a short film made by Meher Bano. It was her student thesis film, and I just watched it just like that without having any notion, that this will lend itself to a feature film now on. So what happened was that, that film just did not leave me. I watched it, and something about that film just stayed, almost like you're haunted by something, and I just then, let it grow, let it brew. And then one day I sat down and I decided that, I need to give it a try. Shall I borrow this story? Shall I take this story and turn it into a feature film? And I think it was a few weeks when I just, I would just make notes. And I really have this habit of physically seeing things. I'm like, either it's like index cards or it's like, scribbles on paper or whatever. So I remember I wrote like a whole stack of index cards, and I was like, this does feel like it can lend itself to uh, a film. And that's when Fatima Sitar came into picture. After I'd asked Banu, my first stop was, I was like, Banu, I need to buy rights to your film, your script, and would you be willing to, to collaborate on this with me? And she said, no, I don't have time, whatever, but sure, this is your film, your story, whatever, you do whatever you want to do with it. But then we officially acquired the rights. And then, so what I'm trying to say is, it begins with connection, that, an honest connection that you find with the story. That is why, I have rejected a lot of offers for directing films where, it is like, oh, here's a script that a producer has worked on, and now we want to hire you as a director to make it for us. I've done television dramas like that. I've done a lot of television dramas like that, where, things are pretty much like preset for you, and then they're brought to you to execute, or to, to bring your vision to it. Of course, you do contribute, but not in terms of, say, the inception was in your control, or you had that journey with it. For example, Humsafar is a novel. Humsafar is a script that I was brought into the whole team as perhaps the last player. The casting was done, the producer was there, the writer was there, and they just gave me a few episodes to read, and that's when I came on board. So the journey is different with films as opposed to TV. I still want to believe that films have to have one origin, at least, or like that kind of authorship needs to belong to one human mind, and then that human mind can allow other people or bring other people into it. And I think I've just been lucky to find the right kind of people with both the films. And as a producer, in case of Joyland, that's again like I don't know. I think it was just lucky, like it was a brilliant script. Simon had been working on it. I'd read like a very early draft of it at some point, and how you just tend to people who are around you, close to you. You're also like, they're doing something on their own, So Simon had been writing it for so many years, and at there came a point when he was like, oh, I think I want to actually make this now. And I was like, sure, let's make it. What do I do? How do I become a part of it? And he said, would you produce it? And I was like, sure. And so with that again, I don't want to say that there's no objective weighing of it, but knowing Syme, knowing his journey, I knew that the script, and I'd read an earlier draft of it, and I was like, it's brilliant. I want to be a part of it. It's more like I want to be a part of his journey. So there I knew his conviction in the story that he's telling, his belief in what he's trying to say through the film is so transparent, it's so clear that I didn't have to do that journey, that, I need a connection here. I knew that the main storyteller's connection is already there. So I came in as someone who is facilitating the execution of it, but of course, with love and care and whatever technical experience or professional experience I have.
Cool. So, two of your films, Zindagi Tamasha and Trialand, have been globally appreciated, and that has happened through film festivals. Uh, how important do you think film festivals are, and why the structure of film festival doesn't exist in Pakistan?
Okay, be it festivals, be it an audience in a theater, in a commercial theater, of course we make art, our art, the way we want to make it, the way we can make it, um, for people, you know. And sadly, here I almost hear it as an accusation from most people. Oh, you must have made a film for festivals only. I was like, I don't know, like, how, what do you mean by that? Like, I want my film to be seen by people. I don't care if you put a pop-up tent and put a screen and people come and watch it. I don't care, you know. Well, I do care that I don't want them to watch it on TV right away. I don't want them to watch it on their phones. I don't want them to watch it on their laptops as the first-hand experience, you know, because perhaps in my case, it's coming from that idea, oh, all my work has always been telecast, you know. So I just want that collective experience of viewing to be experienced by my audience, you know. So a good story is a good story. A story told effectively is a story told effectively. A story told ineffectively is a story told ineffectively. But of course, every business has its sort of, you know, various facets to it. Now, when we talk about festivals, festivals are clearly like these organized uh, occasions where, you know, you get to meet other industry people, where you get recognition for your work, where it is also a place where, you know, you can find distribution opportunities for your work. It is also like, you know, these, for example, big festivals, I mean, festivals as big as Cannes, I mean, they've been around for years and decades now. So of course there is not just, say, a commerce angle to them. It is an industry, and that industry needs to strive for all sorts of evolution, you know. And for it to thrive, it needs not just, say, like a commercial theater. So festivals are an important idea, they are an important notion, they are important occasions. And when I took Zindagi Tamasha to Busan, honestly, I was really naive. I was very undereducated because, you know, I was just happy. I took a film to a festival, you know. But my learning was, no, when you go to a festival, you meet other people, you see other people's work, you showcase your work, you talk about it, you also talk about what you plan to do with your other work, you know. So it's not just an opportunity, oh, now we are going to get a thappa from a festival, and now this is a film that was targeted primarily for a foreign audience. I don't think that is also a very under evolved view, and it almost sounds like, you know, accusatory when people say that. I mean, casually, oh, आप festival वाली फिल्में बनाते हैं, and, you know, you're not interested in the box office type or the mainstream type. So that's what I'd say. That, you know, festivals are uh, extremely important, because for a country like Pakistan, where we are struggling with, say, our films even reaching that break even monetarily, you know, we need to find new avenues. And in this day and age, when our stories need to be shared globally, and irrespective, even if we try and block that, it's an unnatural phenomenon, you know. So if our films are seen by a larger audience, it is going to be encouraging for younger filmmakers, for newer filmmakers, to tell their stories without thinking about the constraints of, say, the 150 screens that we have in Pakistan, which make it exceedingly, you know, like difficult. And it's just a whole lot of pressure on you that whatever you invested in the film needs to just, you know, it needs to be recovered from this small market. You know, our market is tiny. And now people, not only in terms of what they see on screen, but the kind of process and the kind of elaborate prep work that goes into a film, it's a fancy medium. It's a fancy medium. Even if you're shooting a film on an iPhone, it will still require an elaborate preparation time. It would require that elaborate time to write it. It will require post-production. It will require production, you know. So it's important to understand that even if festivals are an opportunity to expand your market, it is extremely important, you know, and we need to acknowledge it. And it's just sad that, we here in Pakistan do not have a proper festival, for example. When Kara began so many years ago, it was really refreshing, people would bring in their films from all over the world, and people from India, for example, had an opportunity to come here and look at our landscape in terms of just not geographical landscape, but, the cinematic landscape that we had. So I think festivals are extremely important. It's a tough journey. I mean, there are very strict criteria. It is definitely most of these festivals are very transparent with their process. It requires like very diligent work to make sure how you present your film, what kind of, story are you telling, and you need to sort of you need to bring your A game. It's also like, oh, now I've just made a film which is, according to me, art housey as people would want to label it, and now is good enough to go to a festival. No, it is very tedious. For example, Zindagi Tamasha, we submitted it to Cannes, we didn't get in. We didn't get into Cannes with Zindagi Tamasha, but we got in with Joyland, And now I believe that, yes, I mean, people sitting there, they do assess things, they do watch things. There's a whole process to it, and one needs to just, understand that a new filmmaker cannot just get up and say that I've made a film and now it is for a festival. No, the festival will also decide whether it is for them or not.
Okay, but like for new filmmakers, it's difficult to make films directly for cinema. So how film festivals can play a part in giving new filmmakers a platform to exhibit their stories. So, like for
Short narratives, for example, I think the first stop is short forms, right? Short films and shorts. I mean, there is no other market or distribution setup in the world other than festivals for short films. Distributors do pick it from there, and then they distribute it online or in a limited way, because I've never heard of, like, I mean, the little bit that I've traveled, I've never seen like a cinema saying, oh, we're showing 20 short films today for a week. No, it would be always like a select cinema, the art housey type, the indie cinema that, so festivals are a great opportunity for filmmakers to explore formats and shorter duration forms of film where they can send in stuff. And now I keep seeing and hearing that there's such bright, young, promising filmmakers whose work is being featured in. And of course, with festivals also, you need to understand it is also another side of the film industry or the film world. So there would be all tiers of festivals. So beginning small is not always bad. I mean, one can start small. One can start with, I don't know, for example, films from Pakistan and India have a great opportunity at a lot of these festivals, which are South Asian festivals. Manto went to a lot of South Asian festivals. We did not get into any big one, and they happen all over the world, from the US to Europe to to India and beyond, like in Australia and places. So just getting your work acknowledged, because at the end of the day, you do want your work to be registered. You do want people to see your work. So it is important, I would say, sure, but it is not the only thing that should matter. What matters and what should matter much prior to that is, are you telling your story honestly? Do you have that connection with your story? Do you have just that end in your mind that, oh, I need to make it to that festival? Are you going to, contaminate your storytelling because you have some preconceived notion of, oh, what ingredients do I need to put in to make sure I get into a festival? No, it doesn't need to work like that. I feel it needs to come from a place of honesty. For example, in the case of Joyland, I have seen Simon's journey with it. It's a good 6-7 years that he spent with just writing the script, just rewriting it, and then believing in the story that he wanted to tell. So I know that it was never like, oh, I want to make it for a certain festival. He wanted to tell this story. He wanted to make this film. It was not intended to the end result of it before it was produced.
Okay, so let's talk about art of watching cinema. People in our country do watch films, but that importance and passion for cinema and its storytelling has like almost disappeared. how do we return to that? How important it is for people to have access to.
Sorry, Uzair, your voice is breaking. Can you repeat that question for me?
I'm asking to let's talk about art of watching cinema. Like people in our country do watch films and they go to cinemas, but that importance and passion for cinema and storytelling has disappeared. How do we return to that, and how important it is for people to have access to these stories?
You know how long it takes for parents to teach their children Tamiz? It takes years, you know. So I feel uh, I would not blame the audience alone, because perhaps, you know, we did not cultivate that culture. I do not want them to be blamed for it. For example, for a person to know that, oh, it's not polite to just point phone at anyone and take their photo. You know, sometimes you really need to stop people and make them realize that no, there is an etiquette about it, you know. So I'm just saying, so a lot of things perhaps have just been, you know, like they've been bombarded on us at a speed where we did not get the process time, and now we are still struggling with it. So likewise with cinema, I don't think, say, the big chunk of audience that's going to watch cinema have watched it with that tehzeeb, or that sense of, oh, it is a sign of a civilized society to experience a thing collectively, you know. They just feel, oh, we've bought the ticket, we are here, we are just going to look at our phones whenever we want to, we're going to make noise with eating our popcorns and chips, and, you know, we shouldn't worry about whoever's. So I'm just saying, there used to be decorum about a lot of other things that we have either just let go of, or we did not effectively, you know, carry forward. You know, we did not carry it forward as effectively as we should have. So I still feel there is hope, you know, like, for example, when I go to you know, watch a film, I make sure if somebody is making any, like, you know, restlessness, or just looking at their phones, or just, you know, just talking to each other. So I make sure I have a big smile and I say it very politely. And sometimes people are kind enough, when they recognize me, they're like, oh, sorry, sorry. But I'm like, shh. And then when they look at me, I'm like, bad manners, you should do that, you know. And then they're like, when just because you bought a ticket, I also bought a ticket, you know. So we need to just, you know, when it's almost like I can't start smoking here, you know, so you can't start talking here. So just that. And I feel uh, that the saddest thing about the whole cinema collapse in Pakistan was that the culture of going and watching movies in a theater collapsed also, you know. It's still too new, you know. The whole multiplex business, the, you know, the multi-screen cinemas on top of malls and things, you know, that is still quite new, you know, because they're perhaps bringing the same vibe. Oh, we shopped a little, we ate in the food court, and now we'll just go and watch a film also, you know. So that, I think overall, that idea, you know, like, for example, when you went to watch a film in a single screen, big theater, you knew, oh, now I have come here to watch a film only. And I will go in, I need to, you know, enjoy it. And then that respect or that decorum somehow organically flowed out of that whole exercise. So people will get it, I feel. And it works both ways. I feel that you respect the audience. For example, like, I take offense on behalf of the audience that, you know, when somebody says, oh, they're dumb, we need to dumb things down for them. And I'm like, no, perhaps you need to bring the stakes lower. Do not make every film with that big chunk of money, but try them out. Let's give them a little, you know, like a little newer taste. Let's give them a newer recipe. So once you start respecting the audience like that, because I do feel that, say, for example, in the case of Kamli, I know that some fraction of the audience is a new audience. That audience does not usually go and watch, say, another kind of cinema, you know. So now, once this culture that, oh no, we are making cinema for everyone. Sure, I mean, if it's like a good dance item number in a song, I would want to hoot too. I would want to clap too. I would want to make noise. But then they're watching something not, you know, which is about, you know, just making a lot of noise, then they need to sit quietly and respect the idea that, no, this is a story that needs another kind of attention or sensitivity. Um, so I think we need to have like a two-way process where the audience respects what they're watching, and we also respect that this audience deserves to see a variety of films and storytelling techniques. And perhaps it will take a few years, and maybe things will not be as bleak as we think they are.
Great. Coming back to Kamli, the movie has made money at the box office, but it was a difficult watch for some people. Apart from a good story, what do you attribute this success to? And also, how can we nurture future filmmakers so that they are able to tell equitable stories such as this one?
I will tie it back to what I said earlier, that it's an expensive medium. Now, if you're trying to do an experiment, if you're thinking that, oh, this film might not fit into the formula which guarantees big numbers, which guarantees bigger audience, then you make it for lesser money. You do not then go for, oh, I need to put in all the, uh, the big bucks that, a more commercial film, as they call it. I hate the term. I think a film is a film. It needs to have a commerce angle to it. It needs to have the art angle to it. All films are art forms, and they are made with money, and some money needs to come back. So that divide and that debate is ridiculous for me. So you involve smaller, lesser stakes. You do not just think that, oh, money is all that we need. No, an experiment can work, which requires lesser money. And if you feel that you have conviction in your story, then also do smart planning about it. For example, if your story is very, very experimental, then how about you put in some safe elements, like, say, for example, cast that people can be pulled with, music, your campaign, so and all of it is not just money dependent, to be honest. Like, I know actors, I know singers, I know other key collaborators who, if they get excited by an idea, they would be willing to bring their fees down, they would be willing to collaborate with you. So I feel just having a very vague dream of making a film and having a film in your mind and believing in it and writing it down and having your elevator pitch ready is very different. For example, for the longest time, I said, I want to make films. Like, I am done with TV. And honestly, all it took was a jolt that came from Sajjad Gul Sahab, who owns Avenue Studios, and he used to make films back in the days. So he just said one day at a social gathering or something, and he said, so what's your film about? And I was like, I don't know, but I want to make films. He says, that's the problem. All of you want to make films, but if someone were to ask you that, what is that one film that you can get the money to make tomorrow, you do not have it ready, So that is extremely important, to have a practical plan, because a film is something that needs to be executed, it needs to be made. And it cannot just be in the air that, you want to make a film. So that would be my advice, that if at all you have conviction, it doesn't hurt. You write it, you rewrite it, you do as many drafts as it requires, believe in it, and maybe a day will come that, you might just find that opportunity. And this struggle is not just for us. This struggle is everywhere. I mean, LA has so many filmmakers, so many actors, so many film people just looking for opportunities every hour of the day. Mumbai, Bombay film world, has so many shattered dreams, so many strugglers who have, like, their best scripts, their the best audition tapes in their bags, ready at any time to be presented to. So I'm just saying that let's not also get too bogged down by the drill, that it needs to be a journey. It needs to have some hurdles, or it has some hurdles that need to be overcome.
So, apart from a good story, what other attributes are there in a film, like in Kamli, apart from good story? What else?
So many elements, I would say, was there. I don't know. I mean, I won't talk about the success of a film, but what I can say is that, a, a good film, or a film that has your heart and your mind in it, it will tell you itself. For example, I hope Zindagi Tamasha releases soon. Kamli and Zindagi Tamasha are very different films, very, very different films, even in terms of the ingredients that they have, right? Kamli still has a lot of ingredients of what we associate with mainstream, like songs and, like large, sort of, a sense of largeness to it, the locations, the camera work, the background score, stars, and all of that. It's still there. Zindagi Tamasha is very, very low key, but it has another kind of drama, or like another kind of element to it. So I would also say, if you let your own film speak to you, like if you give it enough time to brew and grow, um, it will dictate its own elements, or the ingredients to you. And that is why world cinema is so diverse. Like, you cannot compare an Iranian film to a European film, or a European film to a Hollywood film. And I feel we need to really understand that at the end of the day, the baseline is pretty simple. There is some technology that you will need, there's some money that you will need, but your unique style of telling the story needs to be there. You cannot pick a formula. It's not going to come out of a dabba of biryani. It's not a biryani mix that anybody can just pull it out and then put it in the pot, and then you will all make the same kind of biryani. And instrument wise also, that what are you trying to measure when you're looking at a good film? Are you looking at the money? Are you looking at the festivals that it went to? Are you looking at how many people watched it? Like, so then it is a very complex organism. So I would say that, how about we simplify it by saying, this is a story that we believe in, this is a story that we are really, really itching to tell, and now tell it the way you want to tell it. If it requires to follow a formula of Rohit Shetty, then follow the formula of Rohit Shetty. If it requires you to follow a certain idea borrowed from Asghar Farhadi, then follow that. Then there's no right and wrong here. It also depends on who you are, how you look at life, how you narrate your stories. And it cannot be like, oh, I'm just going to plagiarize somebody else's work and I'm going to borrow somebody else's style. Who people you like, people who you admire, people whose work has influenced you, that will reflect here and there in your work, and you cannot escape that. So I would refrain from giving like a foolproof potion that, okay, you put this and that in your film and it will work. No.
Well, I guess we will move to our last question. So yeah, two of your films are still not exhibited in theaters in Pakistan. Zindagi Tamasha was mired into controversies, and now there is no news or trial being screened in Pakistan, despite winning big globally. So with such opposition, what still motivates you to make films and tell stories independently?
I would just want to say something as basic as, what doesn't break you, it makes you, right? So opposition is bad. Unfairness is bad. There cannot be two opinions about it. When you are unfairly treated, I feel the biggest damage that it can do is that you start doubting your own self. You start doubting your own take on things. That's what happened to me initially when Zindagi Tamasha got under all the unnecessary fire that it got under. Um, it was just weird and uncanny that it was followed by a pandemic, and I just was home all by myself trying to understand all that had happened to me. And I figured out, oh, this was a very unfair thing that happened to me, so I need to grieve it. And I think just grieving it helped me, because I was going into some kind of a burrow where I was thinking, oh, where did I go wrong? How did it become this bad? Is there something that I would have liked to do differently? And also people's voices, all around you, they would, not always out of a bad intention, but just trying to tell you, even like your friends just cracking jokes, कि मजा आ गया तुझे, अब समझ आ गई वो line तूने डाली थी ना trailer में, things like that. When they'll say that, so it hurts sometimes, and then I did not have any inspiration or the courage to sit down and write something or to create something. But like I said, I don't know, I've used these two words so many times. the brewing and the growing, right? So like you need to give everything that time to grow, to evolve. So likewise, you give time to something as bad as that to pass through your system also. Then you let that feeling completely take over, and then if you can pull it out, pull it out. Otherwise, God forbid, if you're unable to do that, then it will break you, right? So I would say just giving it enough time to say just affect me, and then also just that capacity to pull it out. And then people around you, you do need people, I feel. And those are not always just say family and friends. Just I deactivated all my social media, and sometimes I get these messages in the requested DM, the requested messages, and I open them, and it's so heartwarming that I just scroll up, and then there would be a message around the Zindagi Tamasha time when somebody has just sent me a dua, or somebody has just sent like a little message saying that, we are with you, or whatever, like something really small and something really basic, like just, wishing you luck, or saying that, we will stand with you. Let us know if we, so that matters, I feel. So just knowing that, if there's opposition in the world, there still are people who love you, who love your work. And I'm sure everybody has that kind of support system around them. It's also about recognizing it. And sometimes you really take it for granted, and in this world of, fame and noise and all of that, sometimes you're like, yeah, chal raha hai, sab acha chal raha hai. But then, like, now, for example, I even went into my Facebook inbox, and I really looked at all the messages that, the requests were there for. And yeah, it was really heartwarming. I was like, no, there are some people. And I'm sure even half of them mean what they have written. I was like, sure, wo kisi ki dua hai, kisi ki koi aapko, like just that little support. So it's okay. And I've, I've been saying it all around the promotions for Kamli also, and particularly younger people and filmmakers would ask me, I was like, do not take this page from my book. There's so many other pages which are very nice, which are very inspiring, perhaps, because they are dotted with interesting stuff, and not only success, I mean, like things that I did, that I tried, that I experimented with, and there are nicer stories. So don't let this particular story, because this is, of course, just the only thing that happened in my entire career, which is about 22 years long now, So there are other 21 years of good stuff, interesting stuff to take lessons from, or I don't know, to be inspired from. So don't worry. Bad things can happen. God forbid if they do. We'll, cross that bridge when we come to that bridge.
But I hope we get to see these films soon.
Soon, inshallah, this year. Inshallah.
Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you so much, Samad, for taking out time for us. Hope to see you soon. And also,
thank you, Zair. Thank you.
Forward
I had a lovely time. Thank you for having this
Take care.
chat with me. Bye.